Good morning, Coldwell Banker George Realty agents. As you probably know, this is Friday training. This is being recorded just for the benefit of Coldwell Banker George Realty agents. Anybody's welcome to watch these videos, but I do not offer any legal advice, no accounting advice. It is just for the benefit of our top producers at Coldwell Banker George Realty. Once again, my name is Cesar Aviles. I'm the manager at Coldwell Banker Realty. I'm so happy that you're here. I am going to mute everyone, but you will have the right to unmute yourself if you want to ask questions. So I will let more people into the training as they come into the meeting. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go straight directly to zip forms. Let me go there to I gotta go and cancel this. I'll go and directly go to go to my internet bar, go www.zipformplus.com. That's all I have to type, zipformplus.com. This is the Coldwell Banker George Realty version of Zipform. You have to be a member of the Association of Realtors to have access. If you don't have an account, you just have to ask me, as your manager, as your office administrator, and they will make sure that you have access to Coldwell Banker George Realty broker version. I believe that that is my password. I'm gonna go sign in. I hope that everybody is watching my screen. Um, Everybody's getting this. Don't worry. Happy anniversary. We already pay. The old program will expire in 11 days. All you need to do is say skip or close, and you'll go away from your screen. Don't worry. We already paid for it. And what I did is I went ahead and created a transaction. I'm just gonna grab it. It is called 1234 Disclosure Avenue. This property is in Alhambra, California, and my internet is a little slow. So I am going to grab this transaction. I am getting a little dizzy, but what's going on with my internet? Hopefully it'll get out in there. Hopefully I'll land on my page. Hopefully I'll be able to grab my 1234 disclosure on it. I do have, I don't go through the whole thing of preparing it. I'm gonna go straight to the documents because today I wanted to talk about some of the most critical disclosures and the reason why it's not because Caesar wants you to do this, it's because the civil code, the California assembly people, they believe that the consumer, the buyer is the poor individual and the seller is the rich mafia guy, as it was mentioned at the beginning, right? So when you're here, when you are going to do a listing, and this is especially for listing agents, but as a buyer's agent, you need to know at least some of the disclosures that the listing agent needs to give you. So the first document that I'm going to go for is called Disclosure Information Advisory. I'm going to make the full screen. This is an advisory, right? It is not a disclosure, but this is something that tells the seller why you should give the disclosures, right? So it says, all sellers in California are required to provide various disclosures in real estate property transactions. Among the disclosures requirement, the seller have an affirmative duty to disclose to the buyer all material conditions, any defects and or issues known to them that may impact the value or desirability of the property. Failing to provide those disclosures may lead to a claim or a lawsuit against you, which can be very costly and time consuming. As a seller, you may be required to fill out one or more of the following, and we're going to go through them today. Real estate transfer disclosure statement, this which is people say TDS, a seller property questionnaire, SPQ, If they are exempt, meaning if this is a probate, if this is a conservatorship, the owners are exempt from giving a TDS, but they do have to give an ESD, exempt seller disclosure. So all of these forms are disclosure forms. And now preparing them, it says read and carefully review all questions in the disclosure form. This is us, real estate people, telling the seller, hey, you gotta do it. Make sure that you understand the full extent of the information that is being requested in each question. While a seller does not have the duty to investigate or discover unknown issues, I mean, you don't have to go and dig out something that you do not know. You may have been given disclosures from previous owners at the time that you bought the property, meaning your house might be on a hill, your property has something on the foundation. If they already gave it to you when you bought the house, then you need to pass it along to the next buyer, or from previous buyers who cancel. Information about the property may have been revealed if you might have posted or recorded information and material facts about the property, either online, on social media, blogs, personal websites, Facebook advertisement, or received documents or correspondence from a homeowners association for people that are in condominiums, right? It says, use any known and available documentation to refresh your memory. That's why we use the seller's property questionnaire, because it makes questions to them and they will, oh yeah, I remember we had a leak, 11 years ago, the whole house was flooded. Well, you do need to tell that to a buyer, even if it was 11 years ago, and even if it's a drought in the state of California and it hasn't rained in 20 years. But if you had a flood, if you had a plumbing leak, if you had a roof leak, you have to tell the people any condition, problems, and then provide a copy of that paperwork with your fully completed disclosure form. So if you have a receipt that the plumber went in there and changed the water heater a month ago, before you put the property up for sale, you should keep those receipts and give them to the buyers. That way you say, hey, in case you have a water heater problem, here's the plumber that did the repair, and they are licensed, so they're responsible for it. That way it doesn't come back to your seller. It says a seller does not have to find any lost documents. If they're lost, you lost, right? Or you don't speculate and say, oh my God, I remember we did the concrete driveway 23 years ago and I don't know who did it. No, no, no. And it's cracked because normal California, little earthquakes here and there crack your cement. But you not allow plenty of time to fully complete the disclosure forms, right? Your knowledge may be based upon what you have been told in conversations with neighbors. A neighbor can say, oh, there is train tracks a block away. Or you receive it in writing, any repair. If you happen to be a homeowners association and they tell you on the newsletter that the little kids playground is full of gophers, and the gophers are infecting the whole green area. Maybe that's something that you need to tell them, because eventually they're going to hire an exterminator company. It's going to be expensive. And then all the owners and the condominium are going to, be in charge of spending this money. Maybe they raise the association dues, who knows? If you are unsure about whether something is important enough to be disclosed, you should probably disclose it, okay? So if people say, should I disclose this? If you have a doubt in your mind, I think you should, okay? So that would be the guide. If you don't want to disclose a piece of information about the property, think about what is the reasoning for not disclosing it, right? If the answer is because you think a buyer will not want to buy the property or will want to purchase at a lower price, that is exactly the reason why the fact ought to be disclosed. It materially affect the value or desirability of the property, okay? Then the form gives instructions to the seller on how to fill them out. Do not leave any questions blank or unanswered unless the section is not applicable. Answer all the questions and provide all documentation, information, and explanation to every yes. So if you put a yes on your forms, you have to explain what happened. Don't just put yes. Say, hey, was the room built without permit? Yes. And then you said, hey, This room was here before 19 whatever. When I bought the house was already here, and I bought it without permits, and I'm selling it to you without permits. Don't bother. This is the way it is. Many questions on the disclosure form ask you if you are aware. And it says, are you aware? If you're not aware, then you're not aware of a particular condition, any facts or item. If you do not know the answer to any question, then you are not aware and should answer the question no. The disclosure forms are designed to get sellers to provide buyers with as much information as possible. And thus, many of the questions on these forms may list multiple issues, conditions, or problems, and or have subpart. It is important to address each aspect of each question and provide precise details so that the buyer will understand the who, what, when, and how. Right? It says that disclosure are written using very broad language. You should not limit the information, documents, or explanation that you provide the buyer. Be specific and provide facts for each response. You should not let subjective beliefs limit, qualify, or downplay your disclosure. Don't just say hey, it's a minor. Minor to you may be very significant to other people. Small crack, 1 inch small crack in the foundation can be huge for somebody, right? Depending on what location. So make sure that you tell the sellers to be honest and disclose the thing, and then you would have your opportunity to disclose things that you as an agent are observing on this transaction. You have the duty, it is by law, imposed on real estate agents to do a visual inspection of the property that you're selling. You cannot sell a property and say, I did not see it. I didn't go inside the house. Even in today's COVID, they probably will say, did anybody video the house? Things of that nature. An attorney is going to crucify you if you did not inspect the property. At least you walk through the house, right? And he says, consider all issues, conditions, or problems that impact the property, right? Even those that are not necessarily on your property, but are related to a neighbor's property, such as shared fences, lot line debates, whether somebody's saying, oh, my property value is right here, this is my line, or this is my driveway. Okay, make sure that if there's noises, smells, I mean, if there is a bad smell from a landfill, maybe during the summer months, or humidity coming from the gas company, who knows, right? There is a problem in Alhambra. For those of you that do not know, across the street from Home Depot, there is a big Southern California Edison yard. They put a lot of equipment there. They've been trying to sell that, and somebody wants to build there, but there are some environmental problems in that land. So who knows, right? Even if you have learned to live with an issue, condition, or problem, you have to disclose it. Oh yeah, across the street there is a church, and on Sunday there is no place to park, and you already got used to, and you pray with them, and you whatever you do, and it doesn't bother you anymore, but it may bother somebody, so that needs to be expressed. Even if you believe that an issue, condition, or problem has been repaired, resolve, or stop, you need to disclose it, right? If there is conflicting information, data like square footage, the county says this and the city says that, and the appraisal says that, just let them know. Tell them that this is what it says and I don't understand why. You can be very honest and say, I don't understand, I don't care, as long as my couch and my television fit on the room, I don't care about the square footage. I mean, if I can put my beer on a table there, and that's all I care to watch the football game on the garage, whether I can park one car or no car, I don't care. But maybe the next buyer will care. So I need to let them know. Okay. It says here, number 4, completing a specific types of disclosure documents, right? So you need to complete a real estate transfer disclosure statement. We call it TDS. By Civil Code Section 1102-6. It is the law. It is not a choice. We don't have a choice. The seller doesn't have a choice. By law, the transfer disclosure statement, even the design of the questions was done in Sacramento. Okay, that's how that serious all those I was gonna say stupid politicians in Sacramento are making laws, and sometimes they don't even know what's going on in the real life. You know, they're so secluded in their big mansions, but we, the people, have to do and follow the law. Section 1, it says, allows the seller to incorporate and provide reports and disclosures that relate to the information requested in the disclosure form, right? So substituted disclosure, you know, does not eliminate your responsibility. You cannot say, well, read the inspection report. No, if there's something in the inspection report that you read, you can put it in there. Now, in black letters, it says, for the TDS to be complete, one of the three boxes provided in section 1 must be checked. If you leave it blank, you're not completing that transfer disclosure correctly. And a lot of real estate agents, 70, 80% of the real estate agents that have no training or that they do not care about their profession, leave things blank. And they say, oh, just here's the TDS, oh, here's this paper. It has serious consequences. Nothing happens if everybody's happy. If the buyer is happy, if the seller is happy, oh my God, they'll drink, you know, they'll have their tacos and beer on a Saturday. They'll watch the football game on Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving. They're happy in the house. It doesn't matter if the faucet is leaking. But if something goes wrong, oh my God, they are going to call an attorney, and the attorney is going to be asking every single question. And so that is the problem. And when we come into the issue, they're gonna say, where is his paper? Where is his paper? Where is his paper? Where is that paper? And if you don't have it, and if it's not done correctly, they're gonna say, well, the real estate agent didn't do it. And then what happened? We lose, and then we have to pay our deductible, and then we have to pay settlement sometimes. So, you know, we have to be very careful. When there's no problem, everybody happy. But when there is one little problem, it becomes a huge problem, and it becomes a very expensive problem, right? So this form is explaining how to do the section 2 of the transfer disclosure statement. I'm gonna go and fill one up in front of you guys so you know all the answers that need to be done. I am gonna tell you that some of the answers are being done by the seller. When you're using zip form and you have the form, we will not be able to click the boxes for the seller. When you email the form to the seller, or when you print it and take it with you, then you can fill it out with a pen, and you can answer the questions and help the seller answer the questions, right? Then there is a section 2B, and it says, ask if you are aware of any significant defects, right? Malfunctions. And then they ask you walls, windows, all kinds of those, you know, and so you need to make sure that the seller, complete that to the best of their ability. Now, on section 2C, there are 16 questions regarding the property and the surrounding areas, right? So make sure that those answers are yes or no. And if you answer yes, you need to provide an explanation, right? So make sure that the seller answers completely. If he leaves something blank, say, hey, you forgot this question. And then he might say, well, I don't know anything. Okay, then put NA or something in it. That way you're not aware of that. It says question 16 in section 2C refers to various code sections which be part of a law are concerning construction defects that is widely known as State Bill 800, or is known as Title 7. This law, Civil Code Section 895-945, applies to residential real property that is built by a builder and sold for the first time on or after January 1, 2003. So if you're buying a house from a builder and the property was built, right, after the date, January 1, right, 2003, that seller builder have to give you all this information because it has to do with construction defects, right? This is just a consumer protection. Remember that we live in the state of California. The buyer is more protected than the seller. That's just the way it is. If you go to court, the buyer has more chances to win than the seller. Why? I don't know, because there are too many liberal judges out there, and they think that the poor buyer, even though if it's a rich millionaire buying a property from a hardworking person, the seller was the one that took advantage of the buyer. You, I don't know why, right? And it says here, your listing agent, meaning us, cannot and will not give you legal advice on this matter. So please do not give legal advice on the property, or architectural advice, or engineering advice, or general contractor advice. Now there is another form that the seller have to do, and we're going to go over seller property questionnaire, right? The California Association of Realtors Residential Purchase Agreement requires. So if you're using CAR form, in the form, it says that the seller has to complete a seller's property questionnaire. So this is not by law, this is by contract. So whenever you say, well, the listing agent doesn't give it to me, you can call the listing agent and say, hey, Mr. Listing Agent, you are not fulfilling the seller's part of the contract that says that the seller needs to give the buyer SPQ, and the seller gives to give the buyer the TDS, and the seller have to give the buyer all of this disclosure. So please comply with the contract. That's that. You should talk to listing agents don't want to cooperate with you. If the listing agent doesn't cooperate with you, you can ask me to call the manager of that listing agent, or you can call directly the manager and see how far you can go. And then you can call me, I'll call the manager, and I can quote it and say, hey, you're not doing, your agent is not fulfilling this. Are you not training your agent? And then they get embarrassed, and then they go and comply with it, right? So a lot of the stuff needs to be done, right? Uh, Before January 1, 1994, right? So there are dates, and I'll go with the dates. Usually the form will have those dates so you remember. That's what I told you, to have a pencil and paper so you can write those things down and you remember. I mean, I have them embedded in my brain. If this is an exempt seller disclosure, ESD, it says some sellers of real property may be legally exempt from completing the transfer disclosure statement. For example, probate, bankruptcy, sales by a government. Of course, they are exempt themselves, right? They do not have to give you a TDS. It says some property that is owned by a trust, which have a trustee acting in the capacity of the seller, may also be exempt, but not all trustees are exempt. So here's the way that it works. If I have a trust, the Aviles Family Trust, and I am selling my house and I am alive, I created the trust and I'm selling it, I am not exempt. My trust, my family trust is not exempt because I live in the house. I should know about anything that has a material problem with my house. But if I die and my son and my daughter, who happens to be the successor trust deed, right? Even though they lived in the house when they were children, younger, no longer do they live with me. They each all have their own homes. So when they are supposed to sell my house, they will be exempted because they do not know if a week ago I had a plumbing problem, or if there is more noise in the neighborhood, or if there is a gang member that move across the street, and or a motorcycle enthusiast that at 5 o'clock in the morning he warms up his Harley Davidson at a high boom boom, and wake you up, or a family that loves music, especially mariachi music, out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're partying. Well, you need to tell that the successor trustee is exempt from it, okay? And then they give the seller a recommendation, and this is just recommendation. Says it is important that you fully complete any legally or contractually required disclosure form. To that end, the real estate broker, meaning us, the real estate licensee who is listing the property for sale, strongly recommend that you consider the following points when completing your disclosure. It says, if you are aware of any plan or possible changes to the neighborhood, if you know that they're going to be building a highway, if you know that they're going to be building a school, if you know that they're going to be building a shopping center, a big apartment building, you should disclose it. It says, you also have to disclose any lawsuits, whether filed in the past, presently filed, that will be filed regarding the property or the neighborhood, such as a HOA dispute. Sometimes the HOA is suing the builder or the pool contractor that repaired it and they're not repairing it correctly, or they did the roof for termites. So then you need to tell that to the new buyer of the property, right? It says, if you have any questions about the applicability of any law to the property, your listing broker recommends that you consult with a qualified California real estate attorney for advice. Let them know that they should not use their divorce attorney. It should be a real estate attorney because they are, you know, like more familiarized with the forms and with the real estate contracts, right? Your listing broker cannot and will not tell you if any law is applicable to your property. So it's in writing. So please don't go out talking and saying, do this, do that. And if you say things by mistake, I'm going to ask you, hey, you are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let them go and talk to their attorney. If you need help regarding what to disclose, how to disclose, or what changes need to be made on your disclosure form, the best advice to consult with a qualified California real estate attorney for advice. Your listing broker cannot and will not tell you what to disclose, how to disclose it, or what changes need to be made to your answers, okay? While limited exemptions may exist, such as questions that may impact fair housing and discrimination law, generally speaking, when in doubt, the best answer to the question, do I need to disclose? The answer is yes. So when you ask me, does the seller have to disclose that? My answer is, I think he should. That is 90% of the time. Okay, I will tell you that. So this is called the Disclosure Information Advisory. It is a document that it is recommended. It is a document that is a mandatory to be in the in the broker's folder. So it is required that you turn it in, and this should come in at the same time that you take the listing, okay? I know that there's people that say, oh, Caesar, I'm gonna take the listing, only gonna take the listing agreement, and I'll give you the disclosures later. Don't be lazy. Get them ready, already be behind it, and look forward for more business. If you're still not doing everything, then you're gonna be, oh, so busy, and you'll never get it done. Get it done from the beginning. Any questions on the form? Remember, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. If not, I'm gonna go to the next question. So I'm going back to my list of documents, and then I'm gonna go to the disclosed seller's affidavit, okay? This one is, and of course, look at it. Anything that is in gray, we cannot fill in the information. It has to be the seller. I'm gonna make it bigger so we can understand it. This is something that I hate to do because I am not the IRS employee, but the government imposes it on people doing transfers of property. Luckily, there was a revision that the ultimately responsible person is the settlement agent, meaning the escrow company, the title company are the ones that need to comply with this one. But don't forget it. If you get the information ahead of time, put it on the file and we are clear, right? This one is called the Seller's Affidavit of Non-Foreign Status. We usually call it FIRPTA, right? I hate about the English language that is always they ask you double negative, right? Non-foreigner, rather than saying, hey, this is an affidavit of a person that has a taxpayer, right? But they have all this difficult. The government, they pride themselves on making things very difficult, okay? I mean, if you go to the IRC, the Internal Revenue Code, it's a book, probably, I don't know if it can fit on a truck. They always add more laws to the book. They're adding books, they're adding a lot of stuff to the law, but nobody erase all laws that do not apply, you know, so it gets confusing. But anyway, this is the Internal Revenue Code says that a transferee, the buyer, this is so stupid, right? It says the buyer must withhold tax if the seller is a foreign person. Can you imagine? I am buying a house from you, from Lucy Clark. And imagine that Lucy is a foreign person. She lives in London. She is a British person. She happens to own a house here in Beverly Hills. And I am buying the house, Lucy. And Lucy is leaving tomorrow to the United Kingdom with all the money. And I'm going to say, excuse me, Lucy, I am buying your house, and instead of giving you all the money, I'm going to withhold 15%, and then I'm going to withhold another 3.33%. I'm going to withhold it because you are a foreign person. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? But it is my responsibility to find out as a buyer if the seller is a foreign person that is gonna take the money and decide not to pay taxes. I mean, I think the government is cuckoo on this, but that's how they do it, because Lucy will go to England and it will be very hard to send the Interpol to chase after her. But since I bought the house, they're coming after me, right? Unfair. Everything that the government do, in my opinion, or some other stuff. So you need to ask the seller, and I need to say, hey, Lucy, where is your Social Security? Where are your taxpayers' paper? I mean, imagine in today, you cannot discriminate. You cannot ask anything. You cannot, why would I be discriminating a national origin? Am I profiling somebody just because they're the seller? So it doesn't make sense, but that's okay. That's beyond the point. So we need to get the taxpayer's ID number for the seller. If they do not provide it, the law is on the back of this form, and I'll show it to you how confusing it is. So make sure that you become familiar with it, but do not interpret it. If the seller has any question regarding the affidavit of non-foreign status, okay, you need to direct them to their tax preparer, tax advisor, registered tax person, IRS, whatever. Not you. We do not give tax advice. Oh, I was born in the United States, but now I live in Hong Kong, or I lived in Arizona. I've never been in California, but I own a property in California because I won the lottery, and then I bought a house in California because I was, it was an investment property. If you lived in California, in Arizona, you are subject to foreign taxes for the state of California. Very confusing. So read the form, familiarize the form, and it talks about the property address. And then over here, they're gonna put the name of the seller. They call it transferor. They wanna be very fancy. Instead of putting seller's name, they put transferor, because the law calls it transferee and transferor. Authority to sign. It says, if this document is signed on behalf of an entity, the undersigned individual, a person, declares that he or she has the authority to sign this document on behalf of the transferor. So if the transferor is an LLC, a corporation, an entity, the person signing has the authority. He could be the president of the corporation, he could be the administrator, he could be the manager of the trust, or whatever. Now, you can claim an exemption. It says, I, the undersigned, declare under penalty of perjury that for the reason checked below, I am exempt, right, from the federal withholding law, right? So if you're an individual transferor, I am not, look at this. I have a hard time. English is not my native language. And when they say, I am not a non-resident, not non-resident, that means that I am a resident. They could have made it very easy for the purpose of U.S. income taxation. If this is a corporation or partnership, limited liability trust, then the seller needs to check the second box. We cannot check the boxes for them. In the event that we don't complete this, there will be a qualified substitute or a notice delivered to the buyer saying, I already see that the seller is not a foreign person. right? So the escrow company is going to say that. That is called a qualified substitute. Escrow company, title company are qualified by the IRS that the seller has given them the affidavit. So you, as a buyer, do not see the social security number of the seller, but the escrow company, the title company, already seen it, right? It says the qualified substitute may require the seller to complete and provide to the qualified substitute the information that is in paragraph number 4, which is a social security number, all right? Now, it says here, transfer additional information directed to buyer. If this paragraph is checked, seller shall complete the information in number 4 below and provide a completed form to the buyer. And the information is here, right? Social security number or taxpayer ID number, a TIN, the address of the person, right? The telephone number of the seller goes in that thing. They have to fill it correctly. Then, oh, good old California, right? They learn from the federal government that they can do withholding. So now California has a new law, Revenue and Taxation Code 18662. This, it doesn't matter whether you are a foreign person from a foreign country. This is if you're a foreign person from a foreign state. If you're from New York and you lived in New York all your life and never resided in California, then you're subject to California taxes. They want their money, okay? I understand that this affidavit may be disclosed to the IRS by the transferee, and that any false statement I have made herein may result in a fine, imprisonment, or both. Jail, this means jail. Imprisonment in the English language means jail. If you fake your social security number in this paper. And then the seller will sign right here. Then if the seller completed this form, then you need the buyers signing here, right? That says, buyer unauthorized use of the disclosure of the seller's taxpayer's ID number could result in a civil or criminal liability. This is to tell the buyer, burn the paper, shred the paper. Once you know that I am not a foreign person, don't be giving this paper to anybody else, okay? Now, for those of you that would like to lose your sleep tonight, if you have nothing to do tonight, then you can read the entire federal guidelines. They are as confusing as I have no idea what it is. Look at the definition of a foreign person, right? The foreign person will require to withhold 15% of the gross sales. So if the property is sold for $1 million, the 15% it will be $150,000 to be sent to the IRS, right? And then all the selling expenses, and then you have to send money to the California. And imagine that the buyer, the seller owes $900,000 loan. Can they send 150 to the IRS? There's not even enough money to be sent to that. Well, you need to fill out a whole bunch of forms. That's why we let the escrow help us on this, okay? Look at the decision. Green card test. I don't even know. I had a green card. In my times, it was green. My understanding now is it has little green lines and little pink lines. And if you hold it like this, now the green card looks pink. So there he goes. I have no idea why they keep calling it green card, but it is. Substantial presence test. Come on. If you read it, look at this one. This one is, to me, the most stupid definition. Days of presence in the United States test. Read this. To me, this is no wonder they spend so much time in the Congress doing nothing, designing this. It says, generally, a person is treated as physically present in the country at any time during the day. So if you come in at night, you're not present. However, if a person regularly commutes to work in the US from a residence in Canada or Mexico, or is in transit between 2 points outside the United States and is physically present in the country for less than 24 hours. Okay, I'm coming from Taiwan to Los Angeles, and I'm flying late at night to Rio de Janeiro because I have to make that connection. And I spend 23 hours at the airport in the United States. I have lunch, I drink a coffee at the airport, I stay less than 24 hours. I've never been here. Okay? According to the government, I wasn't here. How stupid can that be? I was here 23 hours, but they don't count. Okay. And so there are some exemptions, and you have to, I don't want to read them because it's so difficult. It's lawyer reading, right? A teacher or trainee temporarily present in the United States under a J visa. How the hell do I know what is a J visa, right? An F visa. Well, I know what F means sometimes, but I don't understand what is an F visa, okay? Closer connection to a foreign country. I mean, this sounds like a espionage to me, 007, somebody going from Russia with love, or from, part of the CIA, part of the undercover, I don't know. But if you're from one, look at it, Guam, if you're from one of the islands, it says at least 65% of the corporation's income. How the hell you have to find out how much money the corporation makes? If you are a corporation from Guam or Virgin Islands, leave that to the professionals, right? And then the buyer have to initial here and the seller have to initial here. This is all of the federal guidelines. And if you want to understand it, you need to go to California Association of Realtors Legal Question and Answers Federal Withholding. They have a whole booklet on how to answer this simple or complicated form, all right? But it has to happen in a real estate transaction, okay? So make sure that you get this ahead of time so you don't have troubles with your escrow, okay? The next form that I'm going to be telling about is the lead-based paint. And this is the first form that I want you to write down or remember that it has a date on it. This is requirement on any property that was built before. Pre means before 1978, okay? So if the property was built after, this form is not required, okay? This is federal law, right? So there is a citation over here, and it has to do with lead-based paint. A lot of other countries, they still have lead-based paint. They're trying to reduce it, but there is a percentage on that because, lead was very good to on colors and on sticking into surfaces, right? And it also, lead can stick into your lungs when you're a very young child, right? So I tell people, I didn't know when I was a child, and I used to have a BB gun and it had lead, and I used to carry them in my mouth and I used to put them in the gun. So that's the reason why I'm cuckoo, right? No, I don't want to make jokes about that. Some people really get sick about this. Now, in the event that the property has lead and they have a certificate that it says this house was contaminated and we clean it up, you have to have it written down here, right? The landlord is making disclosures, right? Because it says, I have no knowledge of any lead-based paint and or lead-based hazard in this housing other than the following. Yeah, you say in 1974, this house was all eradicated from lead, whatever. You will have to put that information here and give the paperwork, right? Because right here, they're asking you about the paperwork. I or we, the sellers, have no reports of records pertaining to lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards in this housing, other than the following, right? So if we already have documentation about lead, make sure that you put it here and you give a copy. It also says that we are giving the buyer, or we are giving a tenant, a pamphlet, a booklet that says protect your family from lead in your home, or an equivalent booklet pamphlet, they call it pamphlet as a booklet, that is approved for use in the state, such as the Homeowner's Guide to Environmental Hazard and Earthquake Safety. Make sure that is the complete earthquake book, right? So the earthquake book has earthquake, lead, environmental hazards, a whole bunch of seismic problems. So make sure that you're giving them the latest, and make sure that we're using the 2020 version. For a long time, we used the 2005 version. So 15 years, we had an old book, an old form. Now they change it. So make sure that you use the 2020 version, right? And then the seller will sign over here, right? And then on page 2, the listing agent will sign over here. So Coldwell Banker George Realty, Cesar Aviles, I'm gonna put a date. And it says, I have told the seller to comply with 42 United States Code 4852D, and is aware of the agent's responsibility to make sure that this gets done, right? So because we're licensed real estate agents, we have to do government work, right? Provide the form to the seller so the seller can provide the form to the buyer. That's our job. Now, on number 3, this is the buyer or the tenant's acknowledgement. So the buyer says, I am aware I have received this form. I'm also gonna be receiving the book, right? The Homeowner's Guide to Environmental Hazard. It says, if the delivery of any of the disclosures on pamphlet referenced in paragraph above occurs after the acceptance of the offer, buyer has the right to cancel pursuant to the purchase contract. If you wish to cancel, you must act within the prescribed time period, right? So this is the reason why I want you guys to, if you are a listing agent, get the form right away when you take the listing. If you are a buyer's agent, make sure that you said, hey, listing agent, give me the forms ASAP, because you only have 5 days after the acceptance to give me all the forms so I can go to my buyer, show him the forms. If the buyer doesn't like these forms, the buyer has the right to cancel. Make sure within a time period. So make sure that this is done in a timely manner. Usually all this documentation have to exchange hands from the seller to the listing agent, from the listing agent to the buyer's agent to the buyer reads them, signs them, sends them back to the buyer's agent sends them back to the listing company gives a copy to the seller. That's the reason why we should charge 6%, because the job is a big job to make sure that we do all of this stuff, okay? When somebody asks you, would you give me a discount? You said, no, a sale of a property has federal law, state law, United States, right here. You can even quote it and say, hey, mister, I need to know about the 42 United States Code 4852D. You can laugh, but you know, that could be part of your, objection handling technique. All righty, study some of that, right? If this is a sale, buyers acknowledge the right for 10 days to hire somebody to make a risk assessment of the lead on the property. They can investigate the property. And then the buyer's agent will sign here. And he says that the agent has told the seller or the landlord through the listing agent, if the property is listed, of sellers or landlord's obligation under 42 U.S.C. and is aware agent's responsibility to ensure the compliance. I have reviewed the information and certified to the best of my knowledge that the information provided is true and correct. So over here, it will be ABC Realty, right? 168 Realty could be the buyer's company if it's listed by Coldwell Banker George Realty, or if you are the buyer's agent, you need to put Coldwell Banker George Realty. Of course, some of the agents over here in the training are from another office, so you can just put Coldwell Banker George Realty, and then over here you put your name, and over here you sign the same way you sign your checks. All righty. So this is called the lead-based paint. I am gonna go back. You can ask questions, or we can do them later on. Let me go to the next form, right? So the next form is a long form, a lot of pages. This is what we were talking about when we were talking with the seller, when we told the seller, hey, Mr. Seller, we are going to give you a form that it will remind you of the things that you have to disclose. I'm not going to read it completely, but you guys should prepare a transaction, a fake transaction, print these forms and read them, so that way you are familiarize yourself and you're not nervous. I mean, I get nervous when I'm in front of the seller. I still, after 30 years, 40 years, I understand that this year in November, it's been 40 years since I got my real estate license. I got it in November of 1981. So 2021, it'd be 40 years. And I get nervous when I talk to a seller, even if it's a friend, even if it's a referral where they say, hey, list the property with Caesar, and I come up with the forms. I get nervous. Might as well, I better know the forms. So that way I am nervous talking to them about prices, commission. I don't want to be nervous about the forms. The form is secondary to me. I got all this. I got it down. I know what they mean. So when they ask me, what is this? Oh, you have to answer yes, no to any problem that you have on your house. What's this? The transfer disclosure statement. What's this? The FERPA. You just have to put your social security number here. Don't worry. Sign it. What is this? This is called a, statewide buyers and sellers advisory. Read it tonight, but this is an advisory mostly for the buyer. And you need to learn the language of your career, just like when you go to the doctor. I guarantee you, I've never been to your doctor and they're going to say, where's your insurance card? They usually ask you for that. Number two, they're going to ask you, would you please fill in this questionnaire? And you start putting, does your father had a heart attack? Does your mother was obese? And you say yes or no to those questions. And then when they call your name, would you please step on the scale? Would you please, I'm going to take your pressure. I'm going to take your temperature. That is the language of the nurse before you get to see your doctor. She knows that by heart and she doesn't misses that. So you need to know your forms by heart. Like this, all of the form, you should be very familiar with them. So that is your job. That's the reason when I go to a listing presentation, I am not afraid to quote, my value is 6%. I'm a full-time real estate agent. Oh, you want a discount? No problem. I'm going to have trouble with my manager, but I'm going to discount it to 5%. Well, the other agent from ABC Realty said they'll do it for less. I understand they'll do it for less, but they're going to sell your house for less. Whoa. You got to be that strong and say, yeah, they're going to cut their blood. They're going to bleed themselves and they're going to make you bleed. Oh, that's how you need to talk to people, straightforward. I'd rather pay 5% and do it. Okay, sign the contract, right? Now, if you're going to do it for 4 because there's a lot of information, the property value is way high, pick up a phone, call me, call your manager, and at least pretend that you're getting permission from a higher source and play the bad cop, good cop, right? And you say, my manager is upset. He told me that that extra discount is going to come in from my personal split. And that is my kid's food. And you start crying, it's up to you. Anyway, this is the seller property questionnaire. You fill in the information, the address of the property, the parcel number of the property, and it has a lot of questions. You need to tell if the property, these ones are statutorily, contractual, required, or related. They ask you, has anybody died on the property? And it doesn't mean the owner, anybody, any occupant, meaning if the property was rented and the tenant died in the property, you need to say yes. But see, we cannot answer for the seller. The seller has to be the one checking the boxes. Is there any order from a government health official identifying this property as being contaminated? Oh, yes or no. The release of illegal controlled substances on or beneath the property? Yes or no. The property is located within 1 mile, right, of an industrial zone? Yes or no. How do you know these answers? The Natural Hazard Disclosure Company, the NHD company, tells you whether the property is in an industrial area, right? Whether the property is affected by nuisance created by an industrial zone, right? Smoke. If you live close to Vernon, if you live close to Downey or one of those areas where the smoke or the smell from the, the Farmer Jones, it smells like they're cutting porks every day. All righty, well, that's a nuisance, right? whether the property is affected by 1 mile of a former federal ordinance, right? Ordinance. That means if it's close to where they used to keep guns. I have no idea. Back in the 1940, when the World War II, Korea War, Vietnam War, I don't know if the federal government put anything in Long Beach or in Pasadena, or where do they put all the guns? That's where if the property is close to that, yes or no. How would I know? I don't know. You better, if you don't know, put I don't know. Whether the property is a condominium, of course you know if it's a condominium. You answer yes, but if you answer yes, you put an explanation here. Property is condominium, part of the good harbor association, whatever, you're gonna do the explanation here. If you need more space, you can click the box and check it and put an attached documentation on it. Page number 2, they ask you about repairs and alterations, right? Yes, no, yes, no. Is there any ongoing maintenance, right? Just to tell you, if we were to sell the Arcadia building, every 2-3 years, they have to get a beekeeper, because on the attic, there is a bee that goes in there and create a big honey bee. And so they have to remove it. So that's an ongoing maintenance. Alhambra office, we have a roof problem every single time they rain. We have a corner that the water rains because it doesn't have a good, but you gotta tell those items. Yes, but we get a roofer to fix it all the time. It's just like having a car problem. Does your car has a problem? Yeah, my tires are getting flat every week. I don't know, but you need to tell them. That way the buyer knows what they're getting into. They also ask you if the property was built before 1978. What do you think that question has to do with? The lead-based paint, right? If you did it between 1978 and you're doing sanding, cutting, demolition on a house, when did you complete the information, right? Yes or no? If yes, were the renovations done with the Environmental Protection Agency lead-based paint renovations rule? If you do not know that, then you remodel your house without a contractor. Please do not do that. Use licensed people. It costs more money, but in the long run, when you sell, you can probably sell your house for more money because it was done correctly than if it was done by a handyman that may have not guaranteed the work, okay? So that's just what the government says. You cannot sue a handyman. You can sue a contractor, a roofing contractor. So that's up to you. That's my part of advice. Number 7, they're talking about structural systems and appliances, right? So is there any problem with the waste disposal, septic system, sump pumps, well, roof, gutter, chimney, fireplace? If there was a problem with the chimney, it's cracked, then put yes and say crack. Disaster relief, right? Just as you probably know, the coronavirus is a disaster relief. Some people are getting $1,400. That is a relief from the government. Well, if there was a flood, if there was an earthquake, if there was a fire, some people in the fire, they got government relief. You have to let them know. If there was an insurance settlement, yes, something happened to the house. Whether he has positive or negative, I don't know what the buyer's thinking, right? Was there any problem with water? People are so afraid because water causes a lot of damage on property. Remember, the property is made out of drywall and wood. And if you get wood with water, it gets softened and then you can get mold and whatever, right? I have no idea. Pets, animals and pets. Oh, I love my 2 dogs, right? I have Shih Tzus. And maybe one of them is very old and he pee right in front of the refrigerator almost every week. One time oh my God, I have to bend and clean up. What happened to my floor? Maybe stink, I don't know, but it is. Are they pets on the property? Yes. I have a snake, I have a raccoon, whatever. I keep a raccoon as a pet. No, I'm just kidding. Is there any problem with livestock? Oh, some people have chickens, right? Livestock is chicken. Is there any problem with wildlife? Believe me, now I am going to say that I live in San Gabriel and I'm going to say that there's a problem with wildlife. I see once in a while coyotes walking on my street. Uh-oh. That is wildlife, right? If you live in Alhambra, you better say that it is a rat infestation in Alhambra. I see the rats this big, okay, up in the wires close to the office. That's a problem. You tell yes. Boundaries. Oh, my neighbor and I, we don't talk. When I bought my house, there was a big tree, and I keep telling him, can you cut your branches? Can you cut the branches? He said, no, 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 never. He never stopped talking to me. So I call a tree company, and I tell the tree company, you see that tree? You see my fence? I want you to cut the tree, every branch that is on my side, straight line. And he did that. Oh my God, my neighbor got all pissed off, and I said, well, I asked you 3 times to do it the nice way. You don't answer, I cut it. I have the right to do so. I don't care if your tree is gonna fall on your side because it's heavy on your side. I don't care if your tree is gonna die. You did not answer me. So I had a dispute with my neighbor, of course. I bought the house next door as well. So I owned the 2 houses. So he sold it to me, even though he didn't want it to. But I was the buyer that got a house. I remodeled, and then I sold it to somebody else. I did a flip on that house. But if you have problems with the boundaries, oh, you need to tell the next buyer, because that neighbor is going to come back to say, hey, that's part of my house. Landscaping, pool, spa. If you have problems with that, you need to tell them, is the pool has a heater? Yes or no? A lot of people in Southern California, somebody put a heater a long time ago. The heater is old. They don't fix it. They want to sell the property without a heater. Yeah, the property has a heater, but we haven't used it in 100 years, okay? So make sure that you yes or no. And the seller is the one that have to answer this question. Remember, if the seller says yes, he has to explain, because the buyer is going to read this and they're going to make a decision whether they buy the house or no. That's why you need to request all this paperwork at the beginning, so the buyer can read it and say, I'd like to move and continue with the transaction. Thank you. I sign all this. Don't just rush it. This has to be done. That's the reason why we get paid, 2.5%, 3% of a big sales price, because we need to go and do all this work. Neighborhood. Is this on a neighborhood noise, as I explained before, right? Is there a motorcycle club that meets in the corner, right? And they all, on Fridays, they go and drinking and until 3 o'clock in the morning. Who knows, right? Is this, you gotta tell the new buyer those items, right? Is there restaurants? I mean, the people that live on Second Avenue, Second Street, Third Street, Fourth Street in the city of Alhambra, just a little north of Las Tunas, they complain about the restaurants, the entertainment, that there is some music there, of course, with COVID, but now they're gonna come back. Government, right? Is there any ongoing or contemplated eminent domain, right? Are they gonna condemn this area, this property? Are they gonna be building apartments? Any pendency or any rent control? Now the answer of rent control is a yes. The entire state has rent control. Any protected habitat for plants, trees. If you live by the beach, hello, there are animals in California that you cannot, trees that you cannot cut, like oak tree, right? Are there any other inspection, disclosures, warranties that you need to do, right? Seller will sign, buyer will sign, and this is the seller's property questionnaire. This brought questions to the seller's mind. Oh, I better disclose about the roof leak, or I better disclose about this, right? So because of this questionnaire that we give it to the seller before, the next document that we talk about it is the transfer disclosure statement. It's called TDS. Everybody talks about this one, right? This also is given to the buyers because it's a civil code section 1102. If you want to lose your sleep tonight, go read the civil code section 1102. That's required reading for any real estate agent. Guess what? I'll make it easy on you. It's going to be on page 2. Right here, I'm sorry, it's gonna be, no, that's the agency law. This one, you need to go to the Google and Google California Civil Code Section 1102, and it will be the whole information about the seller telling the buyer what they're getting to. It is the form that needs to be filled in. Remember, okay, you need to check one of these boxes. The seller has to check box number 1, box number 2, or box number 3. Right? It says no substituted disclosures for this transfer. Click the box. Or you wanted to do that and click and say any inspections that you do to the property, it will be considered me, the seller, telling the buyer something wrong with the house. So you can do that. Any inspections that you do when we sell this property, it's part of the disclosure to you, Mr. Buyer. Boom. That way the buyer, somebody else told the buyer what's wrong or what's good on the property. Okay. Number 2, seller's information. Remember this one, you have to put a date. As of today, this is the problem on this house. If something happened while we're in escrow, flooding, then you have to make an amendment to this. Okay. The seller has to be the one checking the boxes. The seller is living in the property or the seller is not living in the property. That has a lot to do. I am not living in the property. I haven't lived in the property for 5 years. I don't know nothing about this property that occurred in the last 5 years. You can fill that information right here. It says, I don't live on the property. And when they ask you, are there to the best of your knowledge, any of the above that is not an operating condition, you say, I have not lived in the property for the last 5 years and I am not aware of any problems. Boom. Let's see if the judge or the attorney will believe you. You're the landlord, right? Did the tenant call you and told you that there was a problem with the plumbing? Did the tenant call you and told you that there was a problem with the roof? Did you give the credit to the tenant because the tenant was fixing the faucet? Then you are aware. Were you aware? There goes the problem, right? If there is a problem, the attorney is going to ask you a whole bunch of questions just to make sure that you were aware. If you said, no, I went into my bunker, I don't know nothing about the house, I never knew nothing about the house. Okay, if they believe you, then you're clear. But if they don't believe you, you're stuck with the problem, okay? So make sure that you're aware. That's why when the people that are flipping houses, if they answer that they're not aware and they already fixed this, fixed that, did the contractor that they used it to flip the house told them that there was a problem in the house? Why did they fix this room and they did not fix that room? Because the contractor told them there was a problem in that room. Duh. If there is no problem, no problem. But if there is a little problem, it becomes a big problem to the attorneys, okay? So the seller have to answer all these questions. Does the property have smoke detector, carbon monoxide? Does it have a built-in barbecue? Does it have a patio? Is the pool child-resistant barrier? Is there a heater on the pool? Where does the gas come from? The utility company, most of the time. If you are in Sacramento and the outskirts of town, you might get a bottle or you get a tank. If you're in Fresno or somewhere out there where there is no piping from the street for gas, electricity, satellite dish, intercom, central heating, sauna, bedroom windows. If you have bars, security bars on the windows, do they have a release mechanism? In some cities, it is prohibited to have security bars without that release. I think the whole state, but I'm not sure. Be careful. Is there a fan in the kitchen? Is there 220 volts for your spa or fireplace? All of these have to be answered by the seller, okay? The next, page 3, they ask you, are you aware? Are you aware of any significant defects, right? Are you aware of significant defects? And then in the interior walls, oh yeah, my walls are like this. Are there any problems with the floors? Yes, the floors are like that. Is there any problem with the insulation? Yeah, that's 20 years, 30 years old, time to change it. Are there any problems with the roof? No, only when it rains. No, no, no. When it rains, there is a problem with the roof, then there is a problem with the roof, okay? And then if you are, they make you a whole bunch of, it says installation of a listed appliance, device, or amenity is not a precondition of the sale or transfer of the property. The carbon monoxide device, garage door opener, child restraint pool barrier may not be in compliance with the safety standards of today, okay? So make sure that if you're selling an old house, they're reading all this and the buyer is aware, okay, of these things. Is the property, look at it, within the 1995 edition of the California Building Standard Code? How would I know? I'm not a builder, but they're asking questions there. Additionally, on or after January 1, 2014, a single family resident built on or before that date that is altered required to be equipped with water conserving plumbing fixtures. I mean, when you do it, anything after 2014, you have to have shower heads that are low in water consumption, toilets that are small on the tank, right? That's why people flush 3 times. They spend more water, but the toilet is a 1-gallon toilet, whatever, right? You're saving water, right? Okay. Then there is a question number C, and that's strictly directed to the seller. Hey, Mr. Seller, are you aware of any substances, radon gas, lead-based paint? The answer is yes or no. Any features of the property that are shared with the adjoining landowners? This one, I see a lot of no's, and is yes a lot of the times, because the fence of the property sometimes is a share fence. So all you need to do is put a yes, nothing wrong with answering yes, but over here, you put the explanation and you said number 2, share fences. Any encroachments, easements, similar matters that affect the property, yes or no. Any room addition, structural modifications or alterations made without the necessary permit, yes or no. Look at this one, structural modifications. A lot of people think that because you did not add square footage to the house, you don't need to get a permit. You're wrong. If you remove a wall on the house between the kitchen and the dining room, for example, and create a modern open kitchen, you modify that house, you probably needed to do that with permits. Maybe you move an electrical outlet. Maybe you move the new stove and put it in a bay in the kitchen. Hello, that should have been a yes. I did not add a square footage to my house, but I remodel and I did 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms. When my kids move out to college, now I have a big family room in the 2 bedrooms. Write it down and put it into yes. I don't know. The other one is structural modifications not in compliance with building codes, right? I do not know. Make sure that the sellers know. If they have problems with these questions, they can check with the city, with the Department of Building and Safety. Is the property filled, compacted? This is on some hills, they put dirt to make it flat. That's what that means. Any settling from any cause. I've seen houses that are like this in Highland Park on the hill because it's settling, right? Is there any sliding, soil problems, flooding, any drainage problems? Whenever it rains, my house floods. No. Major damage to the property or any structure from fire, earthquake, floods, or landslides, right? I saw a house, one of the agents sold a house, had been in a fire. Then they fix it, right? They did not tell the buyer. Then this buyer sold it again, and the inspector of the second buyer, number 2, says this house was involved in a fire. And the buyer said, oh, I remember somebody told me, but I didn't know. Well, they went to the city. The house was almost rebuilt. How do they know? Because a couple of the woods inside the attic were a little scorched. And the inspector said they should have replaced those beams because, it was too weak to hold a roof. Was that a problem? Oh, you bet it was a problem. Somebody had to pay. So neighborhood noise, CCNRs, if it's a condominium, CCNR, the answer is yes, and you just put condominium. Is there any homeowners association? Yes, there is a homeowners association, and you explain it right here on the bottom. Is there any notices of abatement or citation against the property? If you are in Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles, up in the hills, Altadena, by JPL, that area, it is a fire area, and the fire department, Los Angeles County Fire Department, they issue citations if you're overgrown vegetation. And then if you don't do it, they go ahead and they cut it for you. And you think, oh, how nice. The fire department, they came in and they volunteer and cut the grass outside the house. Guess what? They will put a bill and then they'll submit it to the county taxes, and it will be a abatement notice. There will be a citation, like a ticket against the property, a ticket against the property, right? There will be a citation that somebody has to pay for the fine. Is there any lawsuits against the seller or threatening, right? Make sure that you answer yes or no. And then this one, section 910 and 914 of the Civil Code, has to do with the builder seller, okay? So if the seller is not a builder, then the answer here is no. But if the seller is a builder, make sure that they know what they're signing, because it has to do with builders' construction defects, okay? And the explanation goes right here. Now, I always laugh and I see that there are some agents that are still doing the water heater and the smoke detector form. The form is not needed if you are doing a TDS, because the question is right here. Right here, it says the seller certified that the property as of the close of escrow will be in compliance with section 13113 of the Health and Safety Code, right? You have smoke detector. And also the seller is certifying that at the close of escrow, the property will be in compliance of 191 of the Health and Safety Code by having a water heater brace. So there is no need for a water heater form, no need for a smoke detector extra form. It's right here. TDS takes care of it. But if the property is exempt from TDS, then we will need the smoke detector and water heater form. Got it? That's the reason why it's in the checklist in SkySlope. But if you read the checklist, it will say not needed if it's on the TDS, okay? Then over here, the seller will certify that the information it's in is true and correct to the best of the seller's knowledge as of the day of the sign here. The number 3, very, very, very important. This is your job, okay? And I get this wrong, I would say maybe 50% of the time. There are boxes for the agent to fill in. There is one box, there is a second box, there is a third box, and I want Coldwell Banker policy is that you check box number 1 as an agent, and you're supposed to leave this blank. Do not write anything here, please. Right? Because unless if you do this, then what happened with the AVID? You see what happened? You put this and you write something here. It won't allow you to put this. It's like you go to an ice cream shop and you said, I want vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry in one cone. 1 scoop. No, not 3 scoop. I just mean 1 scoop, but I want 3 flavors. They don't do that. If you want the 3 flavors, you have to pay 3 scoops, right? But in real estate, in our forms, you can only have, so make up your mind, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. One of the other one. Cannot have both in real estate. So we are gonna do this. We're gonna check here. That is your job. You're gonna put Coldwell Banker George Realty, right? Of course, this is my form. I have Coldwell Banker George Realty Alhambra. And then you're gonna sign here and put the date, okay? And you do this at the time of taking the listing, same day as the seller is filling the form, same day that you're gonna sign that information, right? Now, when you are the buyer's agent, you're gonna do the same thing here, right? And you're gonna put boom, and you're gonna sign here with your name. C, an AVID form. It is a requirement of Coldwell Banker George Realty that all of our residential 1 to 4, have a TDS. If you have 4 units, you need 4 TDS. If you have 3 units, you need 3 AVIDs, 1 per every unit. So apartment A, apartment B, and apartment C, you need to have 1 for each. Transfer disclosure statement. If it's a duplex, you need 2, okay? Of course, we're teaching you single family home, you only need 1, okay? Then the seller will sign here. The buyer will sign that they receive a copy. The agent for the seller will sign here, and the agent for the buyer will sign right here, okay? If you are a dual agent, you only sign 1, okay? You can do that. You don't have to sign both, okay, when you're the dual agent. And then it says here, Section 1102 of the Civil Code provides a buyer with the right to rescind. That means the right to cancel a purchase contract for at least 3 days after the delivery of the disclosure. So here's the deal. I get this form today. I have 3 days to say I want to cancel the deal because I don't like that the property has a room addition or whatever, right? That's the reason why people say, I have 3 days to cancel. For this form, you have 3 days to cancel. For anything else, you don't, okay? Once you completed this form, make sure that the buyer signs it, buyer gives it to the buyer's agent gives it to the listing agent gives a copy back to the seller, right? Or some listing agents at the end of the transaction, they gather the whole thing. You can print them from SkySlope, a whole package. You can email it to the seller. That's the good thing about the SkySlope. Once you have all of your transaction closed, you're welcome to do so. You can download, everything comes on a zip file and you send it to the seller. That's up to you. If you want to learn it and use it and be a good SkySloper, there goes. You can get training on SkySlope. You could always call the help desk, their 24-hour help desk. They will help you. They would even get into your computer if you let them, and they'll teach you how to handle things, okay? So I'm going back. It's 11:27, and I am gonna pick up my pace on a couple of things because I want to be able to answer all the questions. This one is the AVID, the form that we were talking about. Okay, this is what you have to do as an agent. You, by law, needs to complete this information. You have to do a visual inspection of the property. Remember, you are not an inspector. You're just doing a visual inspection as an agent, okay? If the property is a duplex or triplex, make sure that you check the box and make sure that this is for unit A, right? Or unit B, or unit C, or 3773, and the other one is 3774, whatever name of the property address. The inspection is done by Coldwell Banker George Realty, and I am not an inspector. I am not, and so only the things that I can see and observe, right? You know, the agent will not climb on the roof. I'm not going to go inside the attic. I'm not going to go inside the walls. I am not going to move furniture. I am going to walk only on the size of the property. I'm not going to measure the property. Everything is right here, right? Oh, it was 1,700 square foot. I don't know what 1,700 square foot looked like, okay? I only know that my couch, my television, and the table so I can put my beer fits on the living room. That's it. Environmental hazards. I don't know what's an environmental hazard, okay? Analysis of agent disclosure. I'm not going to be doing that. Look at this one, right? Buyer should review any disclosures obtained from the seller. Obtain advice about and inspections of the property from other appropriate professionals. If you want to know about the roof, get a roofer. If you want to know about the plumber, get a plumber. If you want to know about the electricity, get an electrician, license preferred, right? If you going to get married, you gotta go to a, get your marriage license. You just don't, you gotta go to Las Vegas. You gotta go to the wedding chapel. They have the license to marry you. You just don't marry in the middle of the casino, okay? That's the reason. You gotta go to the specialist. You go to the wedding chapel in Las Vegas to get married in Vegas. All right? There you go. The specialists. They give you the flowers. They even play Elvis Presley song. All right. So on this one, the inspection was done by Coldwell Banker George Realty. No. And then this is the time. How was the weather? It was sunny like today. Other people were there. The seller, you can put who was there on the, and then you put the entry. Then you put the living room. If nothing's wrong, you put nothing noted, right? It's okay to do that. But the dining room, you can say new floors, right? Because when you went to the dining room, beautiful new hardwood floors in it, right? You notice that. This doesn't say nothing about it, right? You saw that the floors were new or newer. You can put the word newer, right? Kitchen. Now you're selling a house in Pasadena that was built in 1940, and you see that the cabinets have, big stone, nice, appliances that are built in, and the appliances look newer. Remodel, right? So you put remodel, whatever, you type it the right way. You put remodel kitchen. Why do you notice that? Because maybe the buyer says, did they get permits? I don't know. Other rooms, office, den, halls, bedroom number 1, bedroom number 2, bedroom number 3. What about if he has a bedroom number 4? Then you could always do here, right? Bedroom number 4 has a crack on the floor, on the window. Bathroom number 1, bathroom number 2, bathroom number 3, right? You can always do that to, nothing noted. New tile in the bathroom, new, you can put here, crack sliding door, and the seller is not going to fix it. That's okay, as long as you notice it. Anything you notice, you write it, okay? That you believe that it has a value or desirability, right? Other, you can put the patio. You can say the yard, there was no fence in the backyard. The north side fence to the house is non-existent, doesn't happen. There is the neighbors can walk in through here. If you're gonna put more addendums, you could always put addendum, see addendum for additional structures. You see, when I put the X, the form came about. Garage parking, you put in information. Anything that you're gonna make comments, put them in here, right? Get the seller to sign. Then you're gonna have to give this information to the buyer to sign. The buyer's agent will have to sign it, and the form goes into the file. All righty. Now, the next form that I wanted to show you was this one. A lot of controversy with the form, right? Just became a new form December of 2020. So this form is only 3 months old. People don't even know how to do it. People don't even know why should I do it. But it talks about different sources. If there are different sources of the square footage, right, then you use it. Or if you want to, the broker and the agents do not have, look at this one, do not have expertise in determining the exact square footage and lot size. Broker has not and will not verify the accuracy of any numerical statements regarding the square footage, room dimensions, lot size, or location of the boundaries. That is your job, guys. Please don't be measuring stuff, okay? If they caught you with a measuring tape, who knows? The buyer might have a camera. Do a selfie and you're measuring the room and then get you into trouble, okay? So here, if you wanted to do so, you will put the information right here. If the public record shows one amount, 1,700 square feet, right? And the appraisal shows 1698, then you do that. If there is a different sources. Got it? There is no official size for a house. So read the form, right? The lot size the same way. I'm looking at this form and some people are leaving it blank and they're getting the seller to sign it and they're getting the buyer to sign it. And that is a no-no. Please don't do that, right? Look at this one. By signing below, the seller represents that he's not aware of any other measurements. So if you want to put here, you want to use public record and you put the square footage from public record, that's all there is. If you are going to be attaching any reports, and I've seen them, some people gave me almost the whole, what they did is they put the square footage, 1790. And then over here, they put attachment and they gave me a copy of the realist tax. I think that's overdoing it, but it's up to you. We are not requiring unless you guys are having different. The architect says that this is, 1,800 square feet. Okay. And the public record, the multiple listing service says that it's 1,750. If there's discrepancy, then yes. If you know that there is 2 locations where there is, then the form must be used. You show it to the seller fills it in, and the buyer gets given a copy. Then the other one is the fire hardening disclosure and advisory. The same way, this is also a brand new form, right? December of 2020. I guess these people had nothing to do during the coronavirus and they decided to create more forms about the square footage, about the disclosure of home fire hardening. Fire hardening means that you're going to create things to prevent the fire from burning your house. Okay, so there is a home fire hardening prerequisites, right? This disclosure 1 and 2, right, are only required for the seller of residential property with 1 to 4 units constructed before 2010 that are located in a high or very high fire severity zone. If the seller is required to complete the real estate transfer disclosure statement form. So if it is not exempted from the TDS and the property is built before 2010, and the property is in a fire zone, then we have to have this document, okay? If it's not, then we do not require the document. Yet, I've seen the form already in some of the transactions, and they're leaving the boxes unchecked. And they say, well, the property doesn't qualify, then don't give me the form then, okay? So please, learn and understand why. And if you do not know, pick up the phone, call the CAR hotline, and the CAR hotline attorney will explain the form to you. That way you can tell the seller, hey, Mr. Seller, we need to fill this out. Your house is in an area. How do you find out that the house is or isn't? The natural hazard disclosure will tell you if it is. And if it says that it is in a high fire area, then you check the year built. If the house is built before January 1 of 2010, you must do the form. And then the seller will need to know whether the property is done with shingles, right? If you are in Monrovia and they have an old house with wood shingle, oh, you have to have it. So the buyer knows the first thing I do when I buy this house, take the wood shingles, so I don't want the house to burn, and I'm gonna put clay, concrete, or whatever on my roof. I'm gonna make my roof metal. That's the reason. Do I have combustible landscaping? Combustible landscaping doesn't mean that you have a gas gallon there. It means that the grass, tall grasses that could be burning within 5 feet of the home. So make sure that you clearance, right? Single pane or non-tempered glass window, okay? If you have older houses, single pane, with the heat in the fire, the glass pops out, right? And it breaks. Now, if you have double, right, then you don't check it. Loose or missing bird stopping or roof flashing, right? So if you need to know what that is, and they have a mesh, right? Sometimes flashing on the roof, on the eaves, right? If there is ventilation, if the vents have opening bigger than 1/8, you have not flame and ember resistant. All of that, rain gutters without the metal or non-custodial gutter covers. If you have rain gutters, you have to have those covers. That way there is no leaves accumulated there that can burn, okay? So if you already have a fire inspection report by the fire department, by the city, by whatever, if the seller has obtained a fire inspection report that includes a compliance with a certain defensive space. So a lot of people that live in fire areas will go ahead and do this. So then you check it and you give a copy of that report, give it to the buyer. So this form only applies if the property is in a fire zone. So now if the property is at 1611 Garfield is not a high fire zone. I don't have to give it to him if I'm selling the house right here in town, okay? So make sure that you don't use the extra forms if you don't need it. Got it? So now the next one is water conserving. We already talked about the water conserving. Those are the ones that you have to write the dates. January of 1994. The fire hazarding is January of 2010. The lead base doesn't say when, doesn't say January, February. It says before 1978, right? Pre-1978. So you have to write down the earthquake, which is the form that we're gonna do next to this one, is 1960. So those dates, you need to know them by heart. I mean, if you're in the business, it's like a doctor not knowing that, giving penicillin to somebody that is allergic will cause a problem. That's why they ask you, are you allergic to penicillin, right? And you say yes or no. They know that if you're allergic to penicillin, when they give you penicillin, they're gonna kill you. So you as a real estate agent need to know these things, right? You're a license in the state of California. People expect something of you. They are expecting to pay you big commission. That's why it's so easy for somebody to say, hey, I don't want to pay you commission. I want you to give me your commission back. You said, no way. Why? Because I have to know about all of the civil code 1104. I mean, just like a lawyer, you need to know this. Okay? You have to be as expensive as a lawyer, as expensive as a doctor. You got to be knowledgeable on all those things, right? Right? So this is the whole form of water conserving plumbing fixtures. It is just a disclosure that says that if the property was built, it should have appliances, meaning the faucets, the shower heads, water saving. Water conserving, that's the word, water conserving plumbing fixtures. Now, there are some exemptions, right? I happen to own a home in Pasadena, historical property in Pasadena, right? No worries. You can say this house is exempt because you cannot buy one of those fancy faucets that it's water conserving if you have one of those old historical designated homes, okay? So there are exemptions to the rules. But this is just nothing to write on the form other than the address, and then signature by the buyer, signature by the seller, seller sign, buyer sign, and it goes in our files, right? That's all there is to do with the form on any property that was built before 1994. Okay, got it? That's the key. 1994. Water conserving plumbing fixture has to be done. All righty. Let me go back. And I believe that that is all the forms that I have. Oh, the earthquake form. This is another one. As you probably know, this is what I was talking about. 2020 edition, 2020 edition. It has to be like a new car. You put the name of the person, you put the street address of the property, the year built, right? If the property was built before 1960. We do not need to do this. No need to. If the property was built before, then you have to have the form. Now, the receipt of the booklet has to do with the receipt of the lead, the receipt of the mold, the receipt of the earthquake hardening, and we are protecting ourselves and protecting our buyers, so we give them the book. That's why we need the receipt of the book on residential transactions as well as in commercial transactions, so that way we can tell the attorney or the judge, I protected my customer. See, I even gave him a book so he can read about earthquakes in California. Like nobody knows that there are earthquakes in California. But that's the way it goes. So this is the last disclosure that needs to be done. My advice is that when you are taking a listing, you make sure that all of these disclosures are done, they're completed, they're turned into our listing coordinator, and they will be kept on SkySlope. The moment a buyer comes along, you can just directly from SkySlope send them to the selling agent or the buyer's agent. He shows them to his client, signs them, send them back to you. Then you put them back into SkySlope. You are in compliance with the broker's rules, and you're in compliance with the Department of Real Estate, all the civil codes. They're going to give you an award for being a good agent. All right. So let me stop sharing. I've been talking for 1 hour and 45 minutes. I've been talking too much. So let me stop sharing. I hope I did not put you to sleep. Hello, Coldwell Banker George Realty agents. Any questions?
No, you didn't. You didn't put that to sleep. I have the question that, I mean, I just, not question, but just something. This lead-based paint.
Yes, sir.
Built before 1978. So that pertains only to builders?
Houses, condos.
Yeah, I know houses, yeah, but they based as builders build it, or a lot of people move in and they paint all different kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, well, if they painted after that, right?
Yeah.
They did something called encapsulating. So here's the lead paint, and then they painted on top of it, right? So you just need to tell the buyer, hello, Mr. Buyer, if you are afraid of lead paint, because this house could have been painted when it was built and they're all paint inside the new paint.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to have an inspector to peel the paint and take it to a lab, you can do so.
Okay.
So that's what the form says. This house was built before 1978. You could have lead inside of it. If you are concerned about lead paint, have it checked.
But also there are houses that are built 1980s and 90s, and some people, if they got lead-based paint, they painted it because they wanted to shinier, they wanted to nicer, like we said, look better, and they don't need a form.
Yes, they're not supposed to. So hey, if you want to do it for 77, that's up to you. Okay, you're in the clear.
No, I'm just saying. I mean,
yeah. Anybody else has a question regarding any of the disclosures, any of the laws that comes into effect? Let me know. I'd be delighted to answer them. What happened with me is that I've been in the business for a long time. So every time there is a new form, just like right now, the water conserving form, I already knew it. And then all of a sudden, 2020 comes along and they give me two new ones, right? They gave me the one about the fire hardening, and then they give me about the 1 square footage. So I don't have to be concerned about the other ones because I already learned them all, right? I knew about the earthquake form. I knew about the transfer disclosure form. Every time we introduce a new form, then I'm already learning it. So that's why it's not so overwhelming. I can understand if you're newer to the business, if you're new to the business, you say, oh my God, where did I get into, right? So the reason why you come to Coldwell Banker George Realty, we're here to help you. I'm available. Our transaction coordinators are available. Our listing coordinators are available to help you on the forms. But you need to have the basic knowledge. Remember, RTCs are not licensed, per people. yeah, Arcadia, Jenny's licensed and Jonah licensed, but they don't follow they're not members of CAR and follow all the bulletins. Also, you should be reading. I mean, if you are a doctor, if you happen to be a doctor, you better be reading about coronavirus vaccine, right? And you're learning about the studies that are being done and what are the consequences if you take the first shot, the second shot, the Pfizer thing and the AstraZeneca and whatever you're gonna do. You as a doctor are obligated to know. So as a real estate agent, you are obligated to know about the new forms that the government is imposing on you. So, I mean, that's so read real estate stuff. When I send you an email with stuff, pay attention to it. Yeah, I know that some of you, I know that Daniel delete my email. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Well, good afternoon, Caesar. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Regarding to the square footage, is that a mandatory or is this optional? The square footage advisory.
The form is not mandatory unless there are two sources that have different amounts.
Gotcha. And another thing is with the TDS. There's some question is yes or no, but what about some question that you don't know? How are you going to answer that? For example, you talk about compacting.
Google the answer so you know. If you don't know, you're welcome to leave it blank and make an explanation. You can put a little star and say, I don't know about this shit. Excuse my language.
Okay. Gotcha. And last question. If you own a condo and your landlord, and is that give you exemption on a TDS, or you still have to use a TDS if your landlord?
You are not exempt. You got to know because your tenant is letting you know, right?
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Any questions, guys? I mean, I spend my time. I do try to explain it to the best of my ability with the hope that you already know this answer. I mean, I know that you guys are coming. I mean, I appreciate all of you. Some of you like to come into the training every Friday, and I appreciate that. Tell other people in the company that this is the opportunity to ask questions about forms. I mean, remember, we run a business. I mean, sometimes I don't give you enough time. You call me on the phone. It is, Saturday, 10 a.m. I want to go out and have fun. I will give you a very quick answer. I will answer my phone if I'm available, but sometimes if I don't, I just throw my phone, leave it on my nightstand, and I go run errands. If I need a phone, I just reach out for my wife's purse and I use her phone to make calls. I don't have no emergencies. Any questions? Antonio, any questions? Lucy, any questions? Patricia, Pam?
Thank you, Caesar.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So you know my number. I'm always available. For those of you in Arcadia and in Alhambra, I send you a memo about completing the forms. If you have any problems, any issues, let me know. I'll sit down with you, even on a Zoom call like this one. Okay, we can do a one-on-one Zoom call, and I will help you fill out the form. We can share the screen, and I will type up the information and the answers. Okay, I have no problem with it. Okay. You're welcome to those of people. All righty. Well, how about then if I go and enjoy my day? I'm going to continue working. I have a lot of work to do. Those of you that see my desk is full of papers all the time. I got to review not only Alhambra, but I do review all of the transactions in Arcadia. So it's time consuming, but I got to do it. Also, I just want to remind you guys, I don't know if you know, but we do have a bonus for recruiting. If you happen to know a real estate agent out there that you think is going to come up to a good addition to the company, bring it to us. There is a bonus, recruiting bonus that we pay to you. The reason why we're always recruiting is because we want to control, it's called market share. The more listings that we take, the more opportunities that we will have. Real estate offices are like going on a picnic, going on a potluck. The more listings, the more opportunities that we create among ourselves. So believe it or not, a lot of people think, oh, more competition. No, it is more products that we can sell. That's the reason beyond having a big office will succeed in the real estate business rather than having a very small office. They will have harder time to get benefits. Okay, so here at Cobo Bank and George Realty, we share all the benefits. Yes, you do pay a 6% franchise fee. I tell everybody, have the mentality that if you're paying a 6% franchise fee, get your money back. Anything from Cobo Banker, all the tools. I mean, if you pay Cobo Banker split, make sure that when you have a listing, submit your listing to advertising. We pay Chinese advertising, Los Angeles Times advertising. So submit your form so that way it gets advertised. If you have a listing, we pay for installing signs. That's part of your percentage. Yeah, I know that there is all kinds of people recruiting you and come and work for me. I'm going to give you 120%. 120% of nothing is still nothing. But we're here to try to help you make more deals. There is a question that says, regarding the square footage, which one you recommend to use, public or appraisal? Oh, I would recommend using the assessors 100% all the time. So when you get a copy of the appraisal and the appraisal has a different one, then you have to use the form. Okay? If the appraiser uses the square footage from the assessors, no problem. But if the appraisal has its own measurements, then you need to come back and use the form, and you can give the form at a later time before the close of escrow, please. Okay. 11:56, 4 more minutes. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. It's a pleasure to help you guys. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call me. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Caesar. Thank you.